I think you deserve like another round of applause.
No,
so one more time.
Thank you.
So let's chat about gaming and how you started.
That's terrible.
I know, but we still have to talk about your origins.
Yes.
Your dad introduced you to gaming,
Yes.
right? Which one of the games that he brought to your life you were like, actually, this is it? Am I allowed to swear? Yes. Yeah. Which game? Which game were you like, this is the shit right here?
Yeah.
This is it.
It's funny actually. I would say the game that really like made me realize like how great games are was Ocarina of Time on the N64. I mean, I'd played like the Mega Drive, I'd done like Sonic, I'd done all the kind of, that kind of stuff. But it was, I think Zelda was one of those games which I think as a kid I remember playing and being terrified of those zombies. And then once conquering that by myself without my dad next to me, I felt like, yeah. And so that really made me realize like, oh, okay, I could be the hero of my own story here and actually do my own thing. So that was the game that really moved me.
That actually also affected your psyche. Did you just feel like you could go to school and be like, yeah, teacher, I know what I'm doing?
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as I did that, no one had any shit on me, man.
Got you. And so you transitioned to voicing games. How do you feel that gave birth to you making games?
So it's interesting. So my journey really was, again, I played a lot of games growing up, like everything. I was lucky because my dad was into tech, so he brought me into a lot of. He appreciated games more than anything else. I think this was at a time, and I'm sure a lot of you will know, where people looked at games and they're like, oh, it's a waste of time. Like, don't spend any time here. Mind you, people are making millions now from it. But anyway, it was seen as a waste of time. And I think my dad actually really saw almost like the technical art of it as a way of storytelling, because I was dyslexic, so books didn't necessarily do me any favors. And when I was watching film and TV or like TV, no one really looked like me, so why the hell do I need to give myself attention to this thing? Whereas with games, it just did something where I was able to almost put myself in the shoes of these characters and go on this journey of this story that they're going through and feel connected to it, right? But funnily enough though, I didn't know you could have a career in games before I started working in games as an actor. So I went through, my journey really was acting first in film and TV, like playing these, kind of crazy characters. Then I auditioned for Assassin's Creed Origins, and that was the first time I saw behind the scenes of what it means to be in games. And then from there, I started doing more voiceover, more kind of stuff into that. And it was actually through learning. I think the thing about the one thing that I will always stick to with the games industry, and it still is strong today, there is this almost like pure passion and pure love of making the content that they do. Whereas you rarely get that in film and TV. Like a lot of the time in film and TV, not to necessarily say that they don't enjoy what they do, but a lot of the time it is literally just, hey, we're just doing our thing, we're coming in, we're checking out. Whereas with games, there is almost, sometimes even to the detriment to some people, there is almost this sense of like, no, we have to create something really beautiful and brilliant that is incredibly inspiring. And I felt that even when working on Assassin's Creed, surprisingly with Ubisoft, it was one of those ones where I was inspired by every single person who was making games, that it made me realize like, oh, I want to do this.
I actually kind of get that. So I was in banking before, right?
Yeah.
And then I kind of got dragged into making games. But then I realized that I actually want to make the space so safe for my team because everybody's so passionate about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And at that point, you're just like, I just want to take care of them. So they have the space to create and be like, this is where I want to be. And you're right. At some point, it might be to their detriment because they're so passionate and you're like, actually, I don't think people in their passion know how to take care of themselves.
No, this is it. Like we experienced this during making Zao, where the team really believed in what we were doing. that's what essentially ended up, having people staying in later than normal because they really wanted to get this thing through. Or like, doing that extra bit that would have not necessarily, it would have made a difference, but not necessarily too much of a difference. But already now you're affecting your own personal life.
Exactly.
You don't really, you get that a bit in film and TV, but a lot of the time it's the bosses. I mean, and you do get this in games as well, but I'd say in film and TV, it's the bosses are saying you have to stay in. Otherwise, otherwise you lose your job.
Yeah.
Whereas in games, a lot of the time you still have that in big studios, but I feel like there is a lot of love there and passion there that also needs to, you need to remind yourself like, hey man, you need to go to sleep.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought in Zao, because I think I heard you talking once while I was stalking you in the streets.
Okay.
And you were talking about the fact that Zao is about journey of grief.
Yeah.
Right? And that is a deeply personal thing. So when you are creating and bringing in such a deep and personal subject, how much of it, or what did you do to make your team feel safe to be able to create and also share something so deep?
That's a really good question. I think it was a sense of being honest with the team.
Yeah.
Because I came in, I've come into this industry not really knowing, like, I've never made a game before. I come in passionate. It's like, it's
coming
like,
in hot.
I'm a huge fan. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but that, being a fan doesn't necessarily translate into knowing how to make something.
Yeah.
So I really came to the team with this sense of kind of honesty of like, listen, you are all more, you're experts and more, you know more about how to make this thing into a reality than I do. So I'm just going to follow all I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you how I felt, how I, after losing my father, what that journey was for me. It doesn't necessarily mean that my journey is the right journey. Like, it'd be great to hear your kind of, your perspectives. I was just very open and honest. And I think like because of that, it created this space of creative freedom. But at the same time, it was again relying on people's expertise to essentially get this game through the door. It's funny, like even today, like I feel like when we had pitched Zao originally to publishers, it was the biggest thing that a lot of people said were like, either you have no experience, you're never going to make this. Like, why the hell are you even thinking of trying to do this? Or they just were like, you're never going to make it in the time frame that you're saying, right? And to be honest with you, the original idea of Zao probably wouldn't have been able to have been made in the time frame that we were supposed to. So getting used to the idea of killing your own darlings as well was something that I had to learn.
I was actually going to ask you,
Yeah.
because stalking again, I saw an interview where you were saying Zao was supposed to have 3 masks.
Yeah.
And I was so interested in finding out at what point did you were like, I have to let this go and I'm going to have to mourn for a period of time.
So I think this is where the film and TV side helped a lot, was
Yeah.
getting used to the idea of cutting and the idea of scoping. And I think, a lot of the time as an actor, you have to get used to the idea that you may do, 10 scenes, for example, and only 2 of them will make the final cut. So you have to get used to the idea that even sometimes you might do a whole film and you might not even have your face shown. Getting used to that idea of like, you've got to cut, you've got to kind of make it, it's all in service of the product, because you've got a deadline and you've got to hit it. Like that was the thing that I think got me used to this idea of like, oh yeah, I wanted 3 masks, we only had to go down to 2. I wanted like a swimming level and all this kind of cool stuff. But again, it's like listening to the team and being able to understand that, yes, okay, you can be passionate and love the ideas and all this stuff that you want to create, but ultimately, EA have given you a deadline. If you do not hit that, that is a problem, and you've got milestones to hit. And and I'll always say this, like Zoe Brown, who's now the game director at our studio, she honestly saved the studio in regards to making sure that we hit everything on time, and also ensuring that everyone didn't die making this game, because it was a lot. I took the risk as well of like bringing in a lot of people who hadn't necessarily made games before, and it's a lot. It's a process, man. Like, it's hard.
It is. In terms of making Zao in the studio, which one came first? Were you just like, I need to make this game, so I need a team? Or you were like, I have an idea, I have a studio, and this is the vision I have for the studio?
To be honest, it was a bit of a hybrid. I think when I actually, funnily enough, came up with Zao here in Cape Town. I was filming a show out here at the studios, and then I had this like small break, and I was playing Ori and the Blind Forest, and I was, again, it was this show. It was the biggest show that I had done in my acting career. It's called Raised by Wolves, and it was.
Never heard of it.
Thank you. It's a terrible show. But it was the first time that again, the audition process was rough, but it was getting someone like Ridley Scott saying yes to you and giving you the confidence to be like, oh shit, man, maybe I've got something to say. And being here, I don't know what it is about. I think it's Africa in its sense. Like, there is just something about the land here where you just feel fucking raw. It's good. The idea of Zao came into mind, and that's where it sort of came into fruition. So I'd say the idea started first, and then it was about finding people and getting them to believe in the vision of the idea as a whole.
How much time did it take for you to make the game, but also because you're gathering people and you're still trying to teach them the skills, how much more time did it make the game longer in terms of creation?
I would say the whole process probably was, and I'd say this all the time, I think for us, forming the studio, so the studio was formed end of 2019, let's say 2020. And Zao came out 2024. Shit. 3? 4? Was it last year? Holy shit. That's terrifying. Really? 24? Okay, yeah. So 24. So let's say 4 years. I'd say like for the first 2.5 years was forming the studio and what our voice was. That 1.5 years was actually building Zao, I'd say. So yeah, I'd say like it was, like we were building Zao and everything, but I think, funnily enough, when Zoe came into the studio, that's when the game became a thing. So yeah, that's probably the length of time.
I've always wondered when I see Zao, right? Like, grief is such a dark thing, or that's how people perceive it.
Yes.
Right? How did you go in and you were like, I want everything bright and nice and fun?
Because I don't think grief is dark. I think grief is an experience that we will all go through as human beings in the same way that like we experience love and happiness, sadness. I think grief is something we will all have. It doesn't even have to be a parent. It can be like, and I say this, it's not even a parent, it could be a pet, it can be a friend, it can be a job. Like, I think it's such a complex emotion that it isn't something that is always terrible. I think it's one of those ones where it can almost be like a fuel source of something. I wouldn't say the same thing about depression, right?
No.
That's a different beast. And a lot of the time people link depression and grief, which I think is really wrong. I think actually depression is its own thing. It's its own beast that we need to kind of, people need to manage and deal with. Grief is also its own thing, but I think with grief, like for me anyway, from my experience, I felt like it has been an incredible fuel source creatively and allowed me to see almost the world in a very different way. It isn't just, like this. It's there's a lot of depth to it. And I think the color and the vibrancy was very much my experience of, after my father died, it's almost like this shield that he had kind of created sort of like burst or like broke, and everything was alive. Everything was real. Like it was vivid. And I think that's why for me it was really important to color it that way and to kind of make it that way. Things weren't gray. Things were really red or really green. And that's a lot, because a lot of the time the parent almost acts as like a filter, right?
Yeah.
Or like the person who is older than you or who you aspire to, they act as a filter towards this. As soon as you remove that filter, you've then got the loud noise of everything coming at you. And I think that's why for Zao it was important for me to tell the art team, who did an incredible job about it, to make this scream at you. but also feel beautiful, even though we're dealing with such a horrible, visceral experience of a young man, you know?
I think that also brings into being an African, right? In terms of how we actually see death.
Yeah.
And we think that, yes, your body is not here, however, your spirit lives on.
Yeah.
And there's another journey
Yeah.
that comes into your death and your experience and
Yeah.
everybody else's experience.
Yeah.
Right? So my then question is, how do you say this? So when you were creating Zao and you were like, this is the world that I'm trying to bring, how much of your Africanness was there when you were creating it and guided you through it?
It's interesting because I was brought up, I was brought up in London or England, very British, in a very, very predominantly white neighborhood. But I'm first generation, so my parents were very Kenyan, are very Kenyan. So we used to go to Kenya all the time. My family, very, very Swahili. So for me, but I was always dancing between these two spaces of, being this, British kid and then being this Kenyan boy. And sort of, I'd say what Zao was almost like a sort of a reflection of that in regards to this dance between these two spaces and having to manage the loss of someone that you'd cared deeply for, dancing between these two spaces. That British boy felt really, really sad and wanted to, cry and emote and feel something. The Kenyan kid knew that he was the man of the family, and actually, no, it's fine. Death is what it is. You put the body you put the body through it. It's a shell. You move on because the spirit exists. And I think that was the dance that I was having with Zao with this. And I think there was a lot of, I wouldn't even necessarily say it was. I mean, no, it was. It wasn't. It was me exploring my heritage, but it was also just exploring my sort of perspective. And I think that's really kind of how I approached it, because I wanted to pull a lot from a lot of other, incredible cultures as well, to kind of reflect the beauty of how they even look at death and how they look at, a boy becoming a man in a way. So, yeah, I'd say it was influenced not just only by my own sort of, heritage, but by the beautiful cultures and tribes that exist within Africa as a whole.
The gaming industry kind of thinks that you are one of the people who is like the voice of Africa when it comes to gaming.
That's so stupid.
How much of it do you identify with?
So stupid.
Are you just like, yes, I'm a voice of a nation?
The thing, it's so annoying, because the thing is, it's like, it's even, and I experienced this within film and TV, where just by the fact of me being black, it's like, you are the voice of the black people in the acting world. What does Idris Elba think of James Bond? And I'm like, I don't know, ask him. But the thing is, I do feel like there is definitely something to be said about the responsibility of kind of influencing the next generation of artists and creatives. I think that's the thing that I really suffered from growing up. I always say, like, if I knew that you could have a career in games when I was a kid, I probably would have done games instead of acting. Like, I would have gone straight into it. But I didn't know this thing existed, and not only through education, but also through people that I knew or spoke to. So by being, who I am, and sort of being there as a role model, I think it's incredibly important to kind of show, like, hey, you can do this. You don't have to be, you can run your own company. You can make your own game. You can tell your own story. And regardless of race, but I do think that it is important to essentially understand that, yeah, there are people out there who will give you a shot,
Okay. In light of Zao and you being the voice of the African nation, how were there reactions to Zao that completely surprised you?
Please share. Oh, man. Yes. Yes and no. I think there was, the one thing that really, Zao was such a journey. Because making Zao was one of those ones where, first of all, getting it made and through the door was nuts. Like the idea that EA were like, yeah, here you go, here's X amount of money, make this game. And you're like, fuck, okay. Was one of those things. But that was a surprise. And then announcing it at the Game Awards, which...
It was huge.
It's huge, but it's also like, a fucking advert the whole time. But announcing it there, and then afterwards walking out and people being like, yo, this is a great game, this is amazing, like, oh, I can't, like, and sharing their experiences. That surprised me, because I was like, oh, okay, this is actually gonna, this is actually affecting, like, people really care about this, it's affecting them a lot. And then when the game came out, and all the racist vitriol that came on Twitter,
what a wonder.
Which was, the thing is, it's like, and this is the weird thing about it. I think for me, I was like, oh, it's expected, but I didn't expect the lash to be so bad in that way. Because, in my head, I'm literally like, I'm just making a story about grief here. Like,
it's just a game.
It's literally just a game. Like, I'm not, trying to take over the world here. I'm literally just, it's about a guy who lost his dad. So that was also quite, surprising. So I think that, yeah, the process of it was really surprising. And again, I think having it, because it was such a personal story and something that was so close to heart, it made it feel really personal. Mm-hmm. And so, whereas, beforehand as an actor, you just do your thing, you do out. If the film flops, you don't really care about it. Like, or if, they're getting a lot of aggro about it, you don't really care about it. So, but this, you could feel everything, from every, lovely review to every hateful review to every, like, weird comment to, like, it was weird. So I think that was a surprising factor. I also think the big surprising factor as well is actually how, and I guess this is a lesson, as grounding as this is, just how quickly also the industry can turn against you. In regards to, you can go through so much shit and the industry will stay completely silent. And you'll feel like,
yo, my people though.
Where the fuck?
Yeah.
But again, it's that ruthless lesson of being like, hey, it's business, even though it shouldn't be like that.
How did you balance the emotions though?
Oh man, I did it terribly. I think last year was a was a weird one. I think I'm very fortunate to have had not only like a good support network of friends and family around me, but also the other work of being an actor, and being able to kind of go to this thing where I don't have to think. I'm working. It's almost using the same creative muscle, but a lot of the responsibility isn't on me. So I had something to switch myself off. But it was, I feel, I've said this even today. Like, I still feel like I'm recovering from the sort of the madness of what Zao was and what it did, and the beauty of it at the same time.
Okay. Well, since every story begins at the end of another, let's talk about Dead Take.
Yeah.
So, what the hell?
This was.
I'm not sure if we can. Is it possible for us to play the trailer for Dead Take?
Can we do it?
No? Yes?
I'm sure they're working on it. They're like, fuck, where is it?
It's the very last one.
Is it the last slide?
While you are trying to work at it, how did it come about?
This was my way of saying fuck you to Hollywood. And thanks.
Oh,
there it is.
Hi, I'm Vinnie Monroe.
Hello, my name is Chase Lowry.
I am auditioning for a Duquesne film.
I will do anything for this role.
What's haunting you, Mary?
All of this.
Duke doesn't just make movies. He creates worlds.
He's always watching. Nothing escapes him.
And the way he pushes his actors, he is sculpting them into something bigger than themselves.
There's a party, Vinny, which I'd love for you to attend.
The magnum opus of the great genius, Duke Kane.
Finn, get out of there, please. Just pick up.
Magic is cinema is that it lets us peel back the skin, see the marrow of the man,
Don't believe what he says, Vinny.
what he hides,
You're trying to fuck up my career.
what he dreams.
No. Fuck this shit.
Let me in.
Answer your fucking phone.
Please tell me that you were not always like this.
Thank you. It's really good.
It was crazy. So this idea came. It was I was at the Game Awards and I was talking to Bucky from Pocket Pair. And
The one from Avengers?
No, I wish. I mean, you could call him an Avenger, to be honest. No, he was like the community manager at the time, but then he kind of told me like, oh, we're thinking of getting into publishing. And I was like, dope, cool, that's great. He's like, have you got any ideas? And it's funny, I told him, originally we had been working on this idea, which was like an extension of the Tales of Kenzera universe. At the time, which was like this kind of Afro-Gothic, cyberpunk world. And I remember Bucky was like, it's a bit too big for what we were wanting to start with, right?
Said
We kind of
easy,
wanted,
man.
yeah, it was
Easy.
like, let's, I know you, quiet down, EA boy. Like, let's slow down a bit. We're talking indie here. Like, so I was like, oh, okay, cool. There I am, like drinking, like smoking. I'm like, fuck this industry. And he was like, what else have you got? And I was like, well, wouldn't it be funny if I made this game, which is like, pulling in Neil Newbern, Ben Starr, all the Critical Role guys, and it's a horror game, and it's basically like P. Diddy's fucking story, but like as a way, but it's in Hollywood, and it's like a fuck you to them. And he was like, okay, let's do it. So I was like, seriously? And he was like, yeah. How many months? And I'm like, fuck, 7 months. And he was, I know. Listen, again, I'm like losing my mind here. Okay. And he was like, okay, if you could do that in 7 months, that's cool. And I was like, okay, shit. He said yes. And so I ended up essentially calling up Ben and Neil. All the actors on there are really good friends of mine, and basically being like, listen, I've just got this deal for a game. If you do not say yes, this game I'm dead. Like, the studio is dead. All these people's jobs are on your fucking shoulders. Say yes. And they did, thank God. And so we made this FMV horror game, which essentially pulls from a lot of the stories that I have heard, and I have, sort of experienced within Hollywood. A lot of my friends have experienced within Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And, again, like the whole Diddy thing, for example. I know I use that as an example, but like the Weinstein. It's top of mind. I mean, it's the top of mind, but like that stuff is so common and normal in the film industry. It still goes on, and it's horrible.
Wild.
Because it's like, why is this not being, outed and kind of attacked upon more? Now, if I was to make this into a film or a TV show, I definitely would have been censored. I would have been like, nah, pull that away, maybe make it into a fantasy world. Whereas the thing about games is that especially with Pocket Pair, I was able to be like, we're making whatever the fuck we like. And that was great. And so, yeah, we ended up essentially conjuring this first-person horror FMV game, which, it's been received really, really well. It's been really, really nice, and it's been great to do.
Did you feel like before you made it, you were like, I need to shake off Zao. I just need to shake it off.
I think so. I think there was an element of that. I think there was an element of me wanting to, again, it's so funny. And I don't know, and this is actually something that maybe I need to unpick a bit more, because I think like when, we joke about being that voice of Africa kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And I think because of the sort of the madness and the attack of it, there was almost like a sense of me that really wanted to be like, no, I can be more than that.
Pivot.
Do you know what I mean? I can be more than that. But then at the same time, I'm like, why the fuck do I have to say that and do that? Do you know what I mean? It's like I can just create and be what I want to be, rather than necessarily having to prove that I can be more than the African guy. Do you know what I mean? So I think like it was Dead Take was one of those games actually where really it was a mixture of many things. I think it was definitely shaking off Zao. It was also a way of me kind of as I say, like seeing all this stuff in the news and knowing about, again, like all the other horrible stuff that goes on in the acting industry, of me just being like, well, screw you, I'm gonna, do something that outs you a bit. But also, I wanted to create something where I'd formed this team, this beautiful team at Surgent, where I know that they can create and conjure anything that we kind of feel inspired and want to put our minds to. I've also got great friends, like Ben and Neil and all them lot. Like I want to have an experience where we enjoy making it and we can kind of put it out there, and whatever happens to it happens. Because at the end of the day, I think that's what life's about, right? You wanna make cool shit with good friends, and not worry about oh, you didn't hit that milestone correctly. You know what I mean? Anyway, so that was what was quite nice about this experience. It was almost like a purge in many different aspects, I feel.
I want you to think about this before we go to people who are asking questions, and you can answer it at the end. What would Dead Take look like in the gaming industry?
What would Dead Take look like in the gaming industry?
Hold on to it.
Okay.
I think we're ready for questions.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, wow. Andy, can we get the mic?
You know what, I'll tell you what, let's quick fire it. I saw your hand go first, you in the white. Yes, yeah.
Hey, okay. So, did the experience of portraying Bayek of Siwa in Assassin's Creed Origins and the way you portrayed the grief of the lost his son inform the way you wanted to portray grief in Zao?
That's a great question. So the question was about, I hope you guys heard, about Bayek and his loss of losing the son and how that kind of informed the loss of grief in Zao. In a weird way, when I was playing Bayek, I was pulling from, as an actor, I was pulling from the grief and experience of losing my dad, and kind of trying to flip it on its head, the idea of like, how would I feel like if I lost my son? And it was I'd say very, more so artistic in a way. It wasn't really connected. I'd almost say it was different. I'd say like, from my experience, Bayek's loss and his grief came out of, with his vengeance and his anger, wasn't necessarily close to my feeling of what my grief was, which was more of a sense of, trying to right and be a man and right the wrongs of whatever. So I'd say the space that it was, again, dancing in was very similar, but it was different, Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. This was really awesome. I'm curious, if you were to make Kenzera 2 or another game that was more African-based or, black-based or whatever, and black-based, that sounds weird. But because you're so successful and there is a concerted effort to attack, games made by certain people, do you have an idea of how you would try to protect yourself or your team in advance of release? I think it was really interesting that you commented on working in film being a different way to sort of escape that. Do you think you might want to line something up like some other kind of creative pursuit outside of games when the release happens, or something to help the team like hold itself together because you might anticipate that kind of thing happening again? I
think in truth, the best way of handling something like that, if we were to ever have the chance to do it again, is we double down on the fun and we double down on the enjoyment, and know that, I think the thing is at the end of the day, as long as you had a good time making it and you had a good time doing it, fuck the haters. Like genuinely, you just it doesn't even compute. I think 100%. The issue that we had with Zao, I think again it was our first time making it. We got this really positive feedback from the world. EA were kind of also a bit like, don't know if this is gonna hit. You know what I mean? Like it was still, we had a lot of, the process was a bit rough in a way. It wasn't like roses. So I think that also kind of, affected that. Whereas with Dead Take, for example, it's so funny, like we've seen like a bit of hate through Dead Take in weird ways, even though we're like literally commenting on pedophiles and idiots. But like, it doesn't affect us as much, because actually with Dead Take we were like, hey, this was fun, like this was great, this was good, like whatever, man, like that's your thing, you know what I mean? And you kind of listen to the joy more in a weird way. So I think if we ever were to kind of do something like that, we double down on the fun, we double down on who we are and the identity of it, because that's what's important. It's the journey towards it rather than necessarily the end, you know? Some more. Some up here, around here. Let's work down, yeah. Go.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Abu. My question is, has fatherhood transformed your appetite for what you want to make?
Have what?
Has fatherhood transformed the appetite for your appetite for the kind of games you want to make?
Yeah, I think it has. I think the beauty of having a kid is that you don't then become the most important person in the world. I think, there is an element of main character syndrome that I think maybe I suffered from. And then you have a kid and you realize you are literally like the side man. Like you are the side character. And I think the beauty of having this other being, it just adds this sort of, again, depth to life that allows you to look at things and differently, and also create things that you want your child to also be aware that you're kind of proud of, and that you are sort of representative of. I think now I don't really necessarily want to create something that I wouldn't feel proud and happy of. And funnily enough, actually, I was talking to a developer whose father is an actor, Dinga, who is essentially from Arcane Lyon, and his father is an actor, and he was saying this to me, and he's a black actor in France, and this was, again, Dinga's much older than me. Well, don't tell him I said that, fuck. But his father was selecting and choosing roles that were, you wouldn't go for like the typical slave role, or the sort of classic black actor role of, back then. And back then it was harder to see even, black roles even come across. And so they had it hard when they were growing up. And Dinga said, I remember having this conversation with my dad and being like, why don't you just take, these roles? Like, you'd get money, you'd put food on the table. And his father said, well, if I do, in, years to come, you're gonna ask me, why did I take those roles? And that's essentially what's really kind of made me look at my daughter and be like, everything that I do or the choices that I make, I do have to kind of then talk to them and be like, yeah, well, I made Zao because it was an experience of the grief and loss of my father. I did Dead Take because, again, I wanted to have fun with my friends, but also comment on the stupidity of and ridiculousness of Hollywood and the entertainment industry. I'm not going to turn around and be like, yeah, well, I played this fucking slave because I thought it was a good idea. Do you know what I mean? So I think it definitely has affected it. Whereas back then, probably before her, I'd be like, yeah, if I'm playing Django, that'd be sick. And I'm like, would I do that now? Yes. No. No. I genuinely probably wouldn't, because it's just, yeah, I wanted to see me as more than, a fucking black actor, you know what I mean? Anyway, sorry, rant. We got some at the front here as well.
I actually saw someone, I think it was on TikTok, who was saying, as parents, people become the memory of their children. Yes, you're raising them, but eventually you'll go away and all they left us are memories of you.
Exactly. Like the memories of my father is essentially what drove me to make Zao.
Yeah.
Hey, Abu, so Zao was your first game. You were a baby game dev. What is it that Zao taught you that you went into Dead Take with and went, oh, actually, making this fuck up has made me a better game dev for the second game?
That's a good one. I would say listening more to the team and listening more to the creatives, listening more to leads, and also, being like, again, sort of being even more comfortable with the idea of having to make cuts and having to kind of sacrifice things. I think that was something that really kind of came into mind. Also, I guess as well, the idea of and I'm sure Zoe's going to kill me for saying this, not everything has to be in like Confluence or like paperwork, man. Just like, just make it. I know, there we go. You see? There you go. Just make a good fucking game. No, but like, it's like, I'd say like that, really, no, but truly, like, just being more collaborative, I'd say, is really something that I learned a lot from. We've probably got time for
like,
one more,
One
right?
more, yeah.
Go for it.
Hi, Abu.
Hey.
First of all, congratulations to Games. Great stuff. I wanted to ask about the studio, actually. Like now that the studio is maturing, if you guys could pick one like license, one property, one IP.
Yeah.
Let's say like anything goes, right? If you could pick one, which one would you go for? And also, would you step back into the volume, get into the vocab suit, and just
do it?
Or would you just be like in a director's seat and be like, nah?
Oh.
Additionally, why didn't you do Dead Take? Why weren't you one of the faces of Dead Take?
Well, I mean, there's a big reason why every actor on that game is white.
Fair. Oh, God.
As a true reflection of what Hollywood is. I mean,
Fair enough.
Right? Okay, there we go.
Gotcha.
Again, a reflection of Hollywood, not of, whatever. Anyway, yes, good question. I'd say the IP that I would probably take and play with, maybe, I would actually, I know it's still raw and it's still being done a lot. I would like to take the Assassin's Creed franchise and change that shit up. Yeah, okay, cool. But like genuinely, like I feel like it's turned into this weird machine of just churning out shit all the time, and it's become very businessy. And actually, I feel like there's some really cool and interesting. I think like if you look at Prince of Persia, for example, right? I think the best decision that they made was essentially giving it to other developers and being able to play with that that IP. I think AC needs that. Personally, I think that's from the top of my mind. I'm sure I'll come up with more after a few beers. But like that's probably that's from the top of my mind. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. I hope.
Oh yes. Oh, how it look in the games industry? I wouldn't change a damn thing. I keep it the same. I change Hollywood to games. Yeah.
It would be still the same.
Absolutely.
Damn. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You were great, man. Thank you.